Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're looking at something pretty cool.
Yeah, we're diving into a paper about making AI smarter. Well, smarter and more reliable, especially when it comes to those tougher questions.
Yeah, and I think this will be really interesting, especially for you guys who love getting to the bottom of things quickly, but without cutting corners.
Exactly.
So this paper is called Chain of Retrieval Augmented Generation.
But don't worry, we'll call it CoRAG for short.
Catchy, right.
Excellent.
But what's really interesting is that it's not just about the tech itself.
It's about how we learn and solve problems as humans.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's set the stage a little bit. I think we've all run into this. AI hallucinations, right?
Oh, tell me about it.
When AI just makes stuff up.
Like, confidently gives you a wrong answer.
Super frustrating.
Especially when you're dealing with a complex question.
Yeah, something with multiple steps or you need to connect different pieces of information.
It's like, it's trying to sound smart, but completely misses the mark. Exactly. And current large language models, LLMs as they're called,
Those are amazing, don't get me wrong.
yeah.
But they sometimes don't have all the right information.
Or they struggle to put those pieces together.
And, think about it. You use AI more and more every day for research, for making decisions, just to stay informed.
For sure.
You need AI you can trust.
Right. You need to know that it's giving you the right answer.
Exactly. And that's what CoRAG is trying to solve.
Okay, so let's talk about how researchers usually try to ground these AI models, make them more reliable.
So one common approach is using something called Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Okay, retrieval augmented generation.
RH for short.
Got it.
It's basically like giving the AI access to a massive library.
Okay,
External sources of information it can use to answer your questions.
sounds promising. But you're saying it's not always enough.
Well, imagine you're looking for a specific fact in a library with millions of books,
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
and you just grab one book randomly.
You're probably not going to find what you need.
Exactly. Traditional RAG often works like that, just one search. And for tougher questions, that's just not going to cut it.
So it's like a starting point, but not the whole solution.
Exact.
Okay, so this is where CoRAG comes in, right? Our
Exact.
hero of the day.
That's right.
It's like giving AI not just the library, but a research strategy, like how to actually use that library.
It can actually think step by step, like a detective.
I like that analogy, solving a case.
Yeah, so instead of making one broad search, CoRAG dynamically changes its search queries
Okay.
based on what it's learning along the way. It's refining its understanding, getting closer with every step.
So it's not just searching, it's learning how to search better.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And here's the key difference. Most AI models rely on what they were pre-trained on,
Right.
but CoRAG is specifically trained to retrieve information like an expert. It understands not only what to search for, but how to search.
Okay, that's super interesting. So it's like it's learning to be a better researcher.
Exactly.
Okay, so you mentioned training. How does that actually work with CoRAG? Do they just like feed it tons of data?
Well, it's a little more clever than that. The researchers use something called rejection sampling. Imagine you're teaching a dog a new trick.
Okay, I get it. Treats.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
try different things, and you
Yeah.
keep doing what works,
Right.
and you stop doing what doesn't work.
You discard the rest.
Yes. CoRAG is kind of the same. It goes through this trial and error process. It tries different search strategies and keeps the ones that get to the right answers.
So it's like survival of the fittest for search strategies.
Got it. And this makes CoRAG super adaptable. It can handle those really complex questions that trip up other models.
Wow, okay. So we've got this AI that's learning to think like a researcher, but does it actually do better than the existing models?
The results are pretty impressive. So get this. Even with just 8 billion parameters, CoRAG actually beat models that had 32 billion parameters.
Whoa, that's a huge difference.
And it did this on these really tough, multi-hop question answering tasks.
So it's not just about size, it's about thinking smarter.
Exactly. And this is a big takeaway for the future of AI.
I'm listening.
It might not be about building bigger models. It's about building models that reason better.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've got CoRAG, it's more accurate, it's more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
But is it like a one-size-fits-all solution? Or can you, like, tweak it depending on what you need?
That's a great question. And this is another cool thing about CoRAG.
Okay, tell me more.
It's actually very flexible. You can balance performance and computational cost.
So it's like you're choosing how deeply the AI thinks.
Exactly. You can adjust the number of retrieval steps, the number of different search paths it takes.
So sometimes a quick search is enough, and sometimes you need to really dig deep.
Perfect analogy. CoRAG gives you that control.
So like choosing between a quick Google search or spending an afternoon at the library.
Exactly. And what they found is that generally, the more thinking CoRAG does, the better the results. But there's a point where that improvement kind of levels off. You don't always need to overthink it.
Right. So it's like anything else. There's a point of diminishing returns.
Exactly.
Okay. So this is all sounding pretty amazing, but what does it mean for us in the real world? Where could we actually see this CoRAG technology being used?
Well, that's what we'll talk about next. CoRAG has so many exciting applications. It could change how we find information, how we deal with misinformation, even how we conduct research.
Okay, yeah, I definitely want to hear more about that. This is already blowing my mind a little. It's like we're taking AI to a whole new level of understanding.
It's definitely a big step forward. Stay tuned, because in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be talking about those real-world applications and what they could mean for you.
Okay, I'm ready to hear about those real-world applications. But first, can you walk me through like how this chain of retrieval actually works, like step by step?
Sure. So let's say you wanted to find out what university did the lead actor in the movie Inception attend?
Okay, Inception, yeah.
Right. A traditional AI might have some trouble with this
I can see that.
because you need to connect a few pieces of information.
Right, like you need to know who starred in Inception
Right.
and then figure out where they went to college.
Exactly. Multiple steps. So CoRAG breaks this down, and it starts with like a smaller, easier question. Something like, who was the lead actor in Inception?
Okay, so it's like making a plan, almost.
Exactly. A research plan, step by step. Then it uses its search system, like a super search engine, to find info about that.
Okay.
In this case, it would find out that Leonardo DiCaprio was the star.
Uh-huh. The first piece of the puzzle.
Right. Now, based on that, CoRAG automatically asks another question, like, where did Leonardo DiCaprio go to college?
Okay.
And it keeps going like this, getting closer to the answer.
So it's not just throwing a bunch of keywords into a search, it's actually thinking about how to find the answer.
Exactly. It's strategically searching.
Mm.
So in our example, it might search Leonardo DiCaprio's education and find out that he went to John Marshall High School.
Okay, but that's a high school, not a university, right? So would CoRAG, like, realize that?
Exactly. This is where the training comes in. It knows that a high school isn't the answer.
So it wouldn't just stop there.
No.
Yeah.
It would probably ask another question, something like, did Leonardo DiCaprio go to any universities after high school? And eventually, it would figure out that he didn't.
Okay, so that makes sense. But earlier you said this whole process is learned through rejection sampling, right? Can you give me like a real world example of what that looks like?
Okay, so let's say we're teaching CoRAG to answer the question, what's the name of the tallest mountain in the world?
Good question.
Right. The AI might start by asking, what are some famous mountains?
Okay, that's a good start.
Right. But then, let's say it asks, what are some popular hiking trails? Rejection sampling would be like, nope, that's not helpful.
Okay, yeah, that's going off on a tangent.
Exactly. So CoRAG learns not to ask those kinds of questions.
Okay.
Instead, it should ask something like, what is the elevation of Mount Everest?
So it's learning which questions lead to dead ends and which ones get you closer to the answer.
Exactly. It's kind of like developing intuition.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. It's like the AI is learning to think like a human researcher.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons CoRAG is so successful. It's learning in a way that's similar to how we learn.
It's adapting based on feedback. It's not just following a program.
Exactly. And this leads to some really interesting questions about AI and intelligence.
Yeah, it makes you think. Like, if AI can learn to reason like this, could it eventually, like, become even smarter than humans?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
But I think it's important to remember that we're the ones guiding this technology.
Right. It's a tool.
Exactly.
Yep.
So let's talk about some of the practical ways this could be used in the real world.
Okay. Yeah, let's get into that.
So imagine, like, a search engine that actually understands what you're asking. It doesn't just give you links, but a real answer.
That would be amazing. No more scrolling through pages and pages of search results.
Right. Think about how much time that would save. And it's not just for everyday searches. CoRAG could be used for research, like helping scientists find information from huge amounts of data.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like speeding up the pace of discovery.
Exactly. And think about education. You could have systems that figure out what a student doesn't understand and then gives them customized explanations.
So everyone learns at their own pace.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of misinformation.
Right.
CoRAG could be used to automatically fact-check things,
Right.
like finding out where a claim came from and if there's evidence to support it.
Wow. So you could use AI to fight fake news.
Exactly. It's about becoming more informed and discerning about what we see online.
Okay, so we're talking about a future where AI helps us become more efficient, more informed, maybe even more critical thinkers.
That's the goal. But it's important to be realistic, too. CoRAG has a lot of potential, but there are still challenges. We need to think about the cost, the resources it takes, and some of the bigger ethical questions. We'll delve into that next, along with some thoughts about what this all means for the future of AI.
All right, so we've talked about the potential, but what about those challenges you mentioned? What are researchers still working on with CoRAG?
Well, like with a lot of new tech, one of the biggest things is balancing how well it works with how much it costs to run.
Right, because we talked about how CoRAG can adjust its thinking, like how many steps it takes.
Exactly. And figuring out the best balance for different tasks, well, that's something researchers are still working on.
So it's about finding the right level of detail, I guess. Too little and you miss stuff.
Yeah.
Too much and you're wasting resources.
Right, exactly. And that becomes even more important when you're dealing with massive amounts of data, like what you'd see in the real world. Training CoRAG on all that can take a lot of time and computing power.
That makes sense. It's like the difference between, you know, quickly skimming an article and spending hours researching every little detail.
Yeah, a good analogy. And, this brings up some even bigger questions about AI in general.
Okay, well, like what?
Well, CoRAG does a pretty good job of mimicking how humans think. It really makes you wonder about the nature of intelligence.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it, right? Like, if AI can learn to reason, could it someday become even smarter than us?
Yeah, it's a question a lot of people are asking.
Hmm.
But I think the important thing to remember is that we're in control. We're the ones developing this technology.
So it's a tool. We decide how to use it.
Exactly. We need to be careful and make sure we're using it for good. Like imagine using CoRAG to make scientific breakthroughs or personalized education for every student. Those are the things we should be focusing on.
Yeah, that's a much more optimistic way to look at it. It feels like we're just starting to understand what AI is capable of.
Definitely. And that leads me to a final thought for all of you listening. If we can teach AI to think like this, what other human abilities might be possible? Could AI become creative, empathetic, maybe even have a sense of humor?
That's a wild thought. Collaborating with an AI that could challenge your ideas, inspire you, help you see things from a whole new perspective. The possibilities are endless.
I think that's a great place to leave it. The future of AI is full of potential. There will be challenges, of course, and we need to be thoughtful about how we use this technology. But by working together, talking about these issues openly, I think we can make sure AI is a force for good in the world.
This deep dive into CoRAG has been incredible. It really makes you think about what the future holds for AI. It's not just about faster algorithms, it's about systems that can learn and reason and help us understand the world in a deeper way. We hope you enjoyed this journey with us. And remember, this is just the beginning. Keep learning, keep questioning, and who knows what amazing things we'll discover together. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to smarter AI.